Guys, thank you so much for braving the traffic and coming here today, this morning. This is truly a power-packed panel. I mean, every founder here wants to either pitch to you or stay away from you guys. So I'm fortunate enough to be sitting with you. Perfect. I want to kick open this, panel and asking each of you. First, I want to get a sense of what the AI ecosystem is right now and how hot it is in India. So, Prayank, I'll start with you, please, from Accel. Just talk to me about how many applications do you get in a day or in a week, however you want to, whatever time frame you want to do on AI, and how many do you filter out? What's the, filter rate like? Just give me a sense of that, please.
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me here, and congratulations for Moneycontrol on 10 crore plus viewers.
Thank
right?
you.
Yeah, I mean, we launched, a short data point, we launched Accel Atoms like 2 months back. We've got now over 1,100 applications for the program. So just tells you the number of startups, and it's a good view of the market as to how many startups are doing what in different spaces. I think in terms of selection, I think that's a much harder question to answer.
That's what we want to know.
I think to give you some sense, we'll end up with probably 4 or 5 companies in the whole program itself. But from Accel perspective, we do a lot more than just Accel Atoms, right? So I think we have already invested in the last 2 months in maybe 5, 6 AI startups as well. So yeah, I mean, that's a good, every other week we're investing in an AI company.
Perfect. So 1,100 applications, 4 to 5 investments. Yeah. Hemant, you please from Lightspeed.
Yeah, we focus quite a lot on seed and Series A. In any given year, maybe we would see about 500 companies in enterprise and about the same, maybe a little bit more on the consumer side. Right now, we are tracking about 300 very actively in the India, Southeast Asia market. I would say maybe about 50% of them have AI native use cases. And then the remaining will have AI somewhere embedded in the workflow or the way they produce content or the way they service customers. So, look, we are at a point in time where a new wave is going to get permeated across every single category. So we don't think of it as an AI investment or not an AI investment, the same way that people would not say this is an internet investment or not. It is going to play a role in every single part of the knowledge economy and all industries.
Perfect. Shailesh, you from Peak, please. How many applications? What's the filter rate like, please?
Yeah, we have our search program, and we get lots of applications. I don't remember the exact number. It's not that meaningful.
A ballpark, but
it's in the thousands for sure. Mm-hmm. I think that though, with respect to AI, there's still not enough going on in India. It's great that you guys are organizing this event and trying to bring this more to the forefront. But there's so many potential use cases, as Hemant just described, that it should be impacting many more things than it is. And I don't think that enough people are sort of leveraging its potential or trying and playing with it as much as they should.
Perfect. Manjot, I'll come to you. Prayank said 1,100, Hemant said 500, Shailesh said in the thousands. And Premji has a beautiful portfolio, right? Poolside, Galileo, Canva, all of it. You tell me, how is it happening? How much is it? Do you see enough? Do you also not see enough action? How is it happening?
Continuing on that thread of a different lens, we also invest in the US, we invest in India, and we go all the way from Series A to pre-IPO. So my perspective on the number of startups, I think we're finally seeing a lot of activity. It's again going back to Shailesh's point, maybe not enough. In the US, it's a flood. It's a flood where you see nothing but AI. I can even say maybe we're going through the 3rd generation of AI startups in the US, whereas in India, I think the 1st generation is yet to sort of settle in. The indicators are there. Even if you look at the YC applications, again, I don't have specific numbers on hand, but the number of AI startups coming from India, again, exploded massively. But the number that actually make it through are small. So this is a good sort of nutshell view of what's happening. I think, we're finally seeing founders trying to start companies, but when they'll actually be able to compete at a global scale, that remains to be seen.
Okay, perfect. The other day, I actually heard someone say that, I'm building with AI is the new Tu Janta Hai Mera Baap Kaun Hai. So, but we still have a lot to do. Manjot, stay with me here, please, and just tell me, talk to me about the top 3 metrics that you, kind of evaluate when you get an AI pitch that makes the cut and reaches you, please. And I'll come over to you later.
I think that's a very nuanced question. a very nuanced answer to that question. It really, really depends. If you're building an LLM from scratch, for sure the research capabilities of the team matter a lot. what kind of companies and projects they've done. Those kind of things matter a lot. If you're building an application, let's say building a vertical application in healthcare, your experience selling to that target segment matters a lot, your understanding of the problem statement. So it really varies. If you're building consumer, your consumer knows matters a lot. It's less about the technology specifically, but more about the application. So I don't think there's one answer to the metrics or threshold.
Perfect. Shailesh, would you have any specific metrics?
I mean, the one metric we look at for every type of business, whether you're selling sneakers or personal care goods or you're selling software, is retention.
All right.
Is how much do customers who've used your product come back and like it? I think that is something that is super important, that you can, if that is good, usually the lifetime value of a customer is enough, and you can spend money to acquire customers, but the customer should fundamentally like the product.
Perfect. Retention is a more overarching theme across businesses. So nothing specific for AI?
Again, AI is an enabling technology. It will help businesses to do new things that they probably couldn't do before. And it will still have the same characteristics of any sort of business. It will need to get customers. It will need for those customers to like what they do. The customers need to come back. So don't look at it very differently.
Okay, perfect. Prayank, I'll come to you, please. Would you have any metrics, specific metrics that you track?
I don't think there's a metric, but there's a framework for me, or some standing out. Like one is definitely innovation, right? So a lot of companies today, if they have to compete in the AI world, they need to have a differentiated tech. It could be algorithms, it could be, I mean, just to give you an example, like we are looking at companies which are working on graph transformers, merging two different technology patterns together, intersection of robotics and AI. So these are interdisciplinary systems. So the team needs to have interdisciplinary systems. I don't think pure software by itself is going to change industry. So you need to have different sciences come together. So that's what excites me a lot. And I think second is data. Right? So, I mean, what kind of proprietary data the company has access to, be it through customers, be it through some models they are using. I think those are the things which I try to look for. What is the edge? What's the moat for the company? And typically these two tend to be the moats, like the team and the data.
Perfect. And Hemant, you?
I mean, look, I'll push back on the question. I think this goes back to Manjot's earlier point. Like in the US, we are seeing people building third-generation companies, and here we are sitting at first generation. I think we need to zoom out and think about the big picture a lot more often across the venture industry and the founder that are building into this wave. It's almost like somebody has discovered oil and people are building engines, and we're asking how many spokes does your wheel have? Like, who cares? Right. What is important is you're building a car, right? So when we think about these new opportunities, we do really care about what is it that you are building today that was just impossible to build a year ago. So we are seeing companies that are reducing 10-step processes to 0-step processes.
All right.
10 hours to 10 seconds, not 1 hour, but 10 seconds. That's the bar right now. So I would really encourage founders to not focus on one or two metrics that have been given, because every VC who's been making investments here knows that you give me a number for revenue, and you tell the founders that, hey, 1 million and come back. They will build a 1 million business and come back to you, but you still may not make an investment because, well, it's a single customer company. Who cares about 1 million? It may churn out tomorrow. So again, a single metric is not important. What is important is, do you have the vision? Do you have the capability? And are you really solving a core problem using AI in interesting ways that allows you to build a company that was just not possible? Because that's the only wedge you have today as a new startup. So that's what I think we should be talking more about.
Perfect. I want to extend that point. I mean, Manjot did shed light on the US ecosystem. In India, there's always this debate about LLMs versus applications, right? We had Hemant Taneja from General Catalyst earlier. He said in the long term, India should have their own its own LLMs, right? From semiconductors to applications. What's your view, please, Hemant?
So we do see global markets. We are investors in Servam in India. We invest in Mistral in Europe. We investors in Anthropic, XAI, Stability in the US. I mean, look, right now the world is being dominated by two laws. One is a law of teraflops per watt, and the other one is a law which is called the scaling laws. In India, if you sort of unpack these two laws, there is a bunch of work that is happening in the data center ecosystem, in the chip ecosystem, that I think is interesting. And there's a relationship between these two laws. The scaling laws are about algorithmic improvements, data, and compute.
All right.
India has the talent to build new ASICs for AI. 25% of Intel sits out of India, 25% of AMD sits out of India. So I think India does have the talent to build the next ASIC. But it is not going to be easy. It is going to be capital intensive. It will require not just design talent, but marketing, business, positioning talent, manufacturing, and packaging talent. So I think it's a tough ask, but we have the talent to do it. And we are in the talent business, so we are looking for companies there. Data, I would say, it's much more interesting for us. Who do you think has the largest audio data in the world? It's T-Series. The next Suno of the world should be coming out of India. Who do you think has the largest call center data in the world for customer complaints, both textual and audio? It's India. Who do you think has the largest video corpus in the world? That's Bollywood. We should be building foundation models for these sort of use cases. So we have a data advantage. Who do you think has the largest biological data in the world, population scale? It is India. So we should be building these models and coming out of this part of the world. But that's back to Shailesh's question. We are not seeing enough of this happening. The third is the third is algorithms. That's a much harder problem. It requires almost like an R&D ecosystem that needs to have been built 20 years ago. China made that effort, and now they are really ahead. US has had that for decades. India is just picking up there. So I don't really think that we have the talent today existing in the market. We can pull it from other markets to build a new foundation model.
Okay.
So my advice to founders is play the wars you are capable of winning today.
All right.
If you are amazing at raising billions of dollars, go raise that money and build a new foundation model. But if you're not, that's a big boys game.
All right. Solid advice there from Hemant. Shailesh, I'll come to you. What's your view on the LLMs versus applications, please?
Building on what Hemant said, there are so many new things possible today with AI in applications. For most founders, that seems like the most straightforward place to start. And even the global race for models may only be won by hyperscalers who have large free cash flow machines and other businesses that let them invest. Like if scaling laws are truly holding and you need a $100 billion cluster, that just may not be available in the private markets for a smaller or for a startup company. And applications, there's just so many ideas from grading vegetables or to processing an insurance claim faster or to being able to analyze a pattern in a company's data. There's just a zillion problems to solve. And we should have way more people trying to do those things today.
All right. Manjot, you've backed a lot of application companies. That's why I'm asking you. Premji.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, building on what Hemant again said, definitely there's a lot of places where eventually, hopefully, we'll have many more outcomes coming out of India. But the most obvious thing to start with is by far applications. In fact, there was an explosion of infrastructure startups. So, I agree with the picks and shovels theory, but there are too many picks and shovels and barely any applications to be using those picks and shovels. So I think the next generation of companies that I'm really excited about is by far just the application layer. There are a lot of revenue pools and a lot of efficiencies that can be gained with just the sensible application of AI, where it completely alters the delivery of the software, where it completely maybe even complements it with services, which again is a very, very, very strong strength that we have. So I think we should learn how to also leverage some of the strengths that we do have. And continue building out things that are, easily sort of winnable in the short term as well.
Perfect. Prayank, you, Accel is team LLM or team applications, please?
See, I actually reject the whole premise of using LLMs versus applications simply because I think if you're trying to fight like Hemant said, right, LLM what is already done in a way, right? So we are all talking about AI today. I think OpenAI formed 7 years back. So what is it happening today, which people are discovering the truth right now, which will happen which should be in 4-7 years later is the search. Is all of us what we try to do. And I think finding the new, like for example, LLMs, the transformer model itself is changing. Now you have graph transformers, vision transformers. People have said the transformer model itself is old now, so you have something new which is supposed to come up. So at least the way I think about this is folks who are finding what is going to happen 7 years from now and trying to invest in that is what I would try to find, whether it be LLMs, apps, or actually, I think it's completely new technology, and that's what we are searching for. Otherwise, we are just playing second fiddle to Silicon Valley all the time. So.
Understood. Perfect. And Prayank, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you if, if I were to draw comparisons between the Indian ecosystem and the US or Europe for that instance, what are the sweet spots? What are the gaps, especially with AI startups here? Would you have a view on that, please?
I think just adoption of AI by customers is just very low. Today, let's say, if you take consumer, for example, like how many of us actually have taken a ChatGPT subscription in India, $20 per month, we won't, right? But it is highly useful. Like, how many of us use Perplexity? Yes, it is popular tool, but in India, it might not be as popular. Similarly, in businesses side, we are all building for apps, investing for applications, but our businesses don't use AI applications. Typically, I think that's the biggest gap. The user feedback for improving solutions exists more in the Western world than in India. So a typical Indian founder has to just quickly build the product and get feedback from the US. That's my view. I find a lot more Indian founders sitting in the US, building for US market, and then coming to India.
All right.
They might not even come to India at all.
So they can fine-tune the model by then.
I mean, just building better applications, right?
Okay.
So, and I think that's a big difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Hemant, would you have similar views?
Yeah, so I mean, look, globally we are seeing like a very bimodal nature of the category. On the extreme left are companies, on the extreme left are the big categories, the ASICs, the data centers, energy. That's what we see, and I think there is a lot of clarity that those are going to be very big categories, and they attract a lot of dollars, but they're also, going to become more commodity. And what wins in commodity is not product differentiation; it's more about price. And then you can, if you raise a lot of capital, you can price it down. And those are the winners that we are starting to see a lot. On the extreme right is the consulting firms, the PricewaterhouseCoopers, the Accenture. Accenture apparently has $1.5 billion in AI revenue alone. Those are two very clear dimensions in this bimodal nature of the category. Everything in the middle is a toss-up. Anybody who says that they know how that's going to play out is basically fooling themselves, I think. But these are interesting places where startups can actually play. So we are looking at, across the world, we are looking at foundational model companies that I talked about. We are looking at middleware. I think middleware, personally for me, has been the hardest category to figure out because the foundation models may absorb that layer, can build into it, and they are themselves not very static in the way they evolve. And on the other side of the middleware layer is the application layer. And we only have one single application, as Prayank mentioned, one or two perhaps, that have reached 100 million plus user scale. So people don't know what applications will scale and what would they want from the middleware layer. So it's the hardest part. But then, yeah, we are looking at across the board. That's the job we've got. And when we find interesting founders with interesting technologies and approaches, we go on a journey with them.
Understood. Shailesh, you? The sweet spots versus the gaps, India and the Western world.
Yeah, I think, as Hemant said, we should just use our strengths. The data that we have in India to solve different types of problems is a huge advantage that we're not using enough. I think we've been used as a back office by lots of global model companies for a long time. And we need to start leading in some of these areas versus just being a back-end partner. I think the creation of a new model also will be something that comes out of that. Once we start on applications, I think, look, the first generation of application companies will just do something a little bit better and faster with AI. But that will be quickly caught up in a couple of years. You will use your data advantage to roll your own model, which will give you some more fundamental advantage. And that's something, a game that I think we can do very, very well at.
Perfect. Understood. Manjot, you?
I think I'd like this point around how the LLM itself will come out from within maybe some of these applications that they try to build and, maybe let's say improve accuracy or improve some of the other aspects of that the generic models are not giving to them through data or through other means. So I think the gap between the India and US, going back to my earlier point of just leveraging strengths, I think the fact that we have services is a strength. The fact that now finally people are realizing maybe the way to make software even more sticky is by complementing it with services, and that services model that we do have. Secondly, the fact that services themselves can, really sort of fundamentally change in nature and not be closer to the efficiencies of a software product with the transformational powers of just an AI model, AI solution. So I think that may be one of the strengths to leverage for sure. The other things as, back office operations go, the fact that we do have data to maybe train those models faster, quicker, more accurate, and control that end-to-end, supply chain of giving a solution to customers, giving the AI product as the lead, and then circling back with the services component. I think those are some of the ideas where there are gaps still, which I think Indian startups can sort of attack.
Understood. Even our earlier session said, I think Hemant from General Catalyst said that, they're buying out call centers and automating a lot of the work. So that, perfect. My last question, Prayank, I'll start with you. Do you have any favorite applications or applications that you're most excited about?
Well, I mean, I'm most excited about is the intersection of robotics and AI, to be honest. And I think it's a very 5-6 months ago, a small aha moment. I think I kept it said it many times. A Bangalore-based startup pitched to me. They had a plushie toy for kids, and they had LLM inside it.
Oh, wow.
And the plushie toy could basically learn the personality of the child, talk to them about jokes, could chirp them up, could build confidence. It could also send them down the rabbit hole of being a fashionista and doing more materialistic things. So for me, it was like a double-edged sword. It was a very interesting use case.
It started with an interesting note, then I got scared for a bit.
It was, so all technology has both sides, right? But it was like, wow, like if this companion, AI companion is with a person all the time, right? And we talk about mental health, building confidence in kids, like having a tutor at hand all the time. And I particularly liked it because it did not have a screen and it could just talk, right? And it could remember the kids' friends' birthdays and say, hey, so it could make them a better person by giving them motivation. I think that was fairly interesting. Now, whether that is VC investable or not, I don't know. But it gives you some sense of, I was like, that is pretty exciting because day to day, the biggest change AI can bring is in a human being, right? All the application stuff we talk about is great, it's efficiencies. But can humanity itself alter because we have all these companions? It's like awesome. So
super interesting anecdote. Hemant, you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I kind of plus one of Priyank's. We all have our favorite apps, and I think that's probably not the most interesting part of this conversation. I mean, sure, I use for my audio, and I use Perplexity. I think going back to the point I made earlier, there are things that are possible today that are only possible because AI is at a point in its development as it is today.
Sure.
We met a company a month or two ago, 17-year-old kids coming out of school, I think college, they dropped out. They are building an AI companion. It's like a pendant with a camera inside and a speakerphone in their ears. And they use blind people to navigate their environment. Why? Because AI is now at a point where real-time compute can happen using your camera inputs to look at the environment around you, and it allows blind people to walk around without a stake, and it can go to a doorstep and know where the bell is, and it'll tell you in your ear, go 5 feet left and then 5 inches down. They can press a bell, they can enter the room, and they can navigate. That is only possible today because AI is at a point where it can actually do real-time compute at the inference, at the edge. I mean, that's amazing. Whether it'll be a company or not, we don't know. But that's what I guess my nudge to the group here is that, look, if you're a founder, dream big. Don't do incremental stuff. And I think investors need to also not invest with their tail between their legs. When they find a founder who is compelling and is going after a big vision, and we believe that they can go execute, we should go and make investments and dream along with them.
Super interesting anecdotes. Shailesh, do you have any?
I think the greatest applications will be in healthcare. That there's been health records with lots of data for a long period of time. There's lots of information on via image models on what food and the environment that you're in. I think you'll be able to solve lots of diseases and conditions now, and that will be the greatest application that comes out in the next few years.
Lovely. Manjot, you?
I think the biggest applications, honestly, I think it's very hard to predict because any sort of estimation of, oh, this is going to be a great application or that is going to be, it will only be an underestimation.
Now you're speaking like a VC, but personally, I was trying to understand what is exciting you the most.
Personally, I have a very boring life. I use ChatGPT. I use Claude. Claude is actually a phenomenally good app. I still code, and I think that is actually a really good engine to do that. And other than that, meeting recorders, circling back, those type of things. So my use cases are very simple.
I can imagine. Perfect. But on that note, guys, thank you so much for your time. I would love to throw the floor open for questions, but you can catch them later. We're out of time. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.